This next one was sent to cornydrivethru@gmail.com from Richard in Bluefield, West Virginia. Meltzer's latest star ratings came out, and Dave gave the Young Bucks 4 3/4 stars for one of their usual flippy shit scrambled egg matches against Dino and crew. This is monumental, because when you tally up the numbers, Nick Jackson more 4-star plus matches than anyone else in history. Balding Buck is now officially the all-time greatest, best ever God King Grand Poobah Lord and Master of pro wrestling. Road Warrior Buck sadly doesn't share the honor because Balding was in a handful, more 4+ star matches while his brother was injured a few times. I just want to hear Jim congratulate our living legend, iconic hero of the Squared Circle, Nicholas Jackson, for becoming the absolute greatest wrestler of all time and space. These are star ratings, after all, so I assume Dave includes wrestling from other solar systems in his unbiased, flawless ratings.
Well, we talked about this a few minutes ago. It's gotten just ridiculous. Not that they mean anything anyway, but if you're going to have a rating, first of all, the scale for movies is the same in 2020 as it was in fucking 1930 or whenever they started rating movies. Still 1, 2, 3, 4 or half stars in that range. And movies have changed and special effects have changed, etc. But it's still, shitty, okay, real good, and great, basically. And for anybody now, just go back, look at anything Kurt Angle did 15 years ago, any of the Benoit stuff, Eddie Guerrero, great matches of the Michaels and Razor Ramon in the ladder match, Flair and Steamboat, the Midnight Rock and Roll, any classic Kurt Hennig and, Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid. Go down the list of anything from the 70s through 10 years ago. And look at what he rated 4 stars, any of those. And then look at, he's rating throwaway television matches higher than these all-time classics that people remember fucking 10, 20, 30 years later with the top stars in the business. I don't know any other way to explain it otherwise than he's lost his mind, and it's all meaningless. But I don't know what he's looking at, but it's not, and more people are realizing it's not what everybody else is looking at. I don't know how else to say it. Is this, if are we grading gymnastics? Even if we're grading gymnastics, you telling me that the gymnastics that these fucking kids are doing every week on the AEW TV show is better than the gymnastics that the Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask were doing, or fucking Rocco as Black Tiger, or that the scientific wrestling that they occasionally break out, well, that's better than fucking Flair and Steamboat was, or Angle and Benoit, or it's ridiculous. And he's gone mad.
The way I look at it is someone who's been reading The Observer since I was a kid, and I have every single back issue, and I've read Dave's earlier stuff even before The Observer, is I think that the way he evaluates modern wrestling is incomparable to the way he evaluated wrestling in the past in that moment. Everything he rates now, for me, I look at it like there's a 1.5-star curve. So I would minus 1.5 stars for any rating he gives. Because I think in some ways, it's like, if one of these matches happened, like the Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express, let's say, if that match took place in 1994, it would have been like, holy shit, I've never seen anything like this. Now you see something like that nonstop all the time on their shows. Like you said, there are matches that got 3 stars that we could talk about and remember today. But some of these matches on TV that are throwaway matches, and I mean that in the sense that after they're over, I watch them and I don't remember when they aired, what exactly happened. It's just another match, as opposed to something that leaves a real big impact.
Because they look the same.
So I look at it like, it's almost like they're being graded for what they would have being on a show with slow matches.
But see, here's the thing that doesn't perfectly perfectly fit, because if we'd have seen Jurassic Express versus whoever the fuck 30 years ago, at some of the maneuvers, we would have said, holy shit, I've never seen anything like that. But ultimately, people would have farted at it because it didn't make any sense. And it didn't fucking follow any logical pattern of a contest. It's just an exhibition of stuff. So that audience would have been even more critical to that. Well, that audience would have been as critical as I am now, because they all thought that way then. The difference is that the guys who were doing that revolutionary stuff that we still remember them for, Tiger Mask, Dynamite Kid, Black Tiger, whatever, didn't just do it for the sake of doing it and fit it into the contest rather than just an endless series of, we're going to do all this stuff. So even then,
there was a referee and there were rules. I mean, things took place in the context of an actual wrestling match.
Yes, so even then, I think people would have gone wow at some of the athletic shit they were doing, but the match would have gotten over even less then than it does now, because it would have stood out that it made less sense then than it does now.
But that's what I do. Other people can do what they want. I've been reading the Observer since I was a kid, like I said. I look at Dave's star ratings now, and I take 1.5 stars off, and to me, that's more in line with where something realistically is.
That's more math than I want to do in my fucking head for something like that. I do have a complimentary email, though, that since you started talking about this, it brought this up, and I found it real quick. Because I got an email from Matthew, who says, Mr. Cornette, I write to you confused. I started listening to the Drive-Thru and Experience in the spring when I began working from home during the pandemic. Since then, I've stayed current while also listening to past episodes of both shows in reverse order. Getting the blow-off of every feud before the build-up has been interesting, but now that I've worked my way back to mid-2019, I'm perturbed. Based on the way that the AEW fans react to you now, I expected episodes from last spring to be full of caustic criticism, but they aren't. Hearing these old episodes for the first time, you sound like you genuinely wanted the promotion to succeed, yet you were tempered by skepticism they would make all the mistakes they've since ended up making. The worst crime you're guilty of is having the nerve to say, I told you so, after being proven correct. So why are AEW fans so hostile? I realize AEW diehards who are entertained by seeing the same nonsensical gymnastic tricks performed week after week must have short attention spans, but can they really not hold your words in their heads for a full year? Are they Republicans with a natural antipathy towards people who know what they're talking about? Or are they Marks watching a fellow Mark book the way they would, and thus your criticism of AEW is inadvertently personal? I'm a Mark, I admit it, and as a Mark, I have no business booking anything. I admit that too. Does that put me in the minority of what's left of wrestling fans today? Yes, it does, Matthew. It certainly does. That, to me, maybe, is it just that this is what would the product of a bunch of fans getting together and putting together a wrestling show would look like? And I'm not talking about 1 million casual fans. I'm talking about a room of about 50 really diehard fans, because the casual fans could halfway put a wrestling show together that you'd probably enjoy, but the diehard fans will fuck it up every time. So maybe they're taking this personal because this is the kind of horse shit that they would do if they got turned loose. What do you think?
I don't know how to answer that.